steering wheel. Lapse the steering wheel, yeah. Give him steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on! Whoa!
Your leg, please. Your leg.
How the f*** is this possible?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me? From the radio. Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track. Down that interstate.
Hello and welcome back inside the Part for Maver podcast number 1005. This is Todd.
No, not now.
AKA Negative Camber. You know what we do on race weekends.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
That's exactly what we do on race weekends. And we're going to be talking about the Dutch Grand Prix, the last Dutch Grand Prix. But before doing that, of course, I've got to go introduce my co-host. I think he is somewhere in the Appalachian Mountains. I think, if memory serves correctly. You know him.
From out of the way, sir. He's dead. He's beautiful. He's crazy.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the International.
Paul, how you doing? Are you in the Appalachians?
I don't know where I am. I'm in North Carolina somewhere.
Oh, okay. North Carolina is good enough. Close enough. That's good.
I just drove from the
That's
racetrack to
exciting.
my dad's house. I don't know. I didn't follow a map.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, who needs maps anyway, you know?
Apparently we need internet, though.
Paul,
so.
Yeah, I know. It's a dodgy internet connection that we're having, so bear with us. So I gotta say up front, a little perplexed about your weekend at VIR. You had the torque issue on Saturday. That was frustrating.
Yeah.
And
that was a
then
little frustrating.
Yeah. And then on Sunday, you know, the 57, those guys must have Coronas, chips, and salsa on the weekends with the people that determine BOP, because that car has no weakness. It's fast on slow quarter, medium quarter, high-speed corners, down the straights, in the pit stops, which makes me think,
How the f*** that's possible?
I don't even know how that's possible. And
I don't know.
And it's nice to know that the rules that F1 fans now scream anytime there's a passing attempt on the outside, and there's, well, you're trying to pass on the outside. It's up to you to hit the brakes. So were you upset with Gamble or Ellis on that move?
You know, the rules are what the rules were set out at the beginning of the weekend, and there'd already been a penalty for a similar situation between the Lexus and the Porsche, I think. It was a shame.
Yep.
You know, we're trying to hold our points lead, so we didn't need to risk too much, and maybe we risked too much to get the win.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it was frustrating because we lost our qualifying, and that was frustrating because we weren't alerted that there was any kind of issue. And if we knew there was an issue, we would have corrected it, but we weren't. But equally as frustrating was the Saturday race with the Hannas, who were leading or in second the whole race basically, and literally, I mean, the foregone conclusion we were going to win or finish second, and then there was like a yellow flag with 10 minutes to go, and there was Mustangs at first and second, and there was a Mustang right in front of us who had an issue, and he ended up brake checking Hannah at the restart and just opened the floodgates for everyone else to swarm around her and bounce her around, and we ended up being P8 instead of on the podium, and it wasn't to do with anything to do with pace or execution of a race. So I'm really upset, maybe more about that one than anything. And I unleashed my anger on the pit lane, and I ran down to the other team's pit box and let them know what I thought of them. And I don't usually do that, but it was the time, because it was really frustrating.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like it. Well,
few F-bombs, man.
You
few
know,
F-bombs from the Charlesley they got.
You know, sometimes, Paul, you got to get loud with them.
Yep, sometimes.
That happens. So let's talk about the Dutch Grand Prix. We had that this weekend. Okay. There was some people bent out of shape over this weekend. Let's jump in, try to level set the race weekend. It was the last Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. It leaves the calendar after this weekend. It's over 6 seasons after it returned. It exists because of Max Verstappen made it commercially viable. And it signed off with him in the wall on lap 1, at the corner named after him. So, that was,
the irony,
a fitting end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could cut that.
Yeah, it's a shame, right? I mean, it's a real shame that race is, came and gone. I don't know.
I know.
It's nice to have an unusual tracks, and that's an unusual and storied track, and it's once again losing for, not greener pastures, I would say. Maybe greener in money, perhaps.
Yeah, it's all about the money. I think maybe the Dutch people wised up and thought the amount of money F1's asking for this is ridiculous. So we're not doing it anymore. I think that's probably what happened. Max did sign a new Red Bull contract, announced that on Thursday this week, heading into the race. Said that he had talks with F1 and the FIA, and they kind of convinced him the formula is slowly improving. And the deal link kind of covers a potential return of the V8s. Interesting that he's committing to a regulatory change and not a fast car. So be that as it may, but I think he had dog whistled plenty of times that he wasn't happy with the formula, and it was really between whether he resigned to Formula One period or went racing elsewhere, and so he's chosen to stay. Also, Carlos Sainz, new Williams deal the day before that, and really kind of the silly season resolved into almost nothing, and that is kind of the story of silly season, really. I'm not 100% convinced that Carlos re-signed for Williams because he's a passionate believer in their mission so much as there wasn't really another seat to go to.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think behind the lines, everyone knows where the commitment's going before it's announced to the press. And then once that one domino does not fall, then everyone else then reacts to that. And maybe that's why Carlos, as you said, found that he had no place else to go and decided a seat is better than no seat. Yeah.
Also heading into the weekend, you had Isaac Hadjar broke his wrist in some weird boxing thing he was doing. So he missed the race. They moved Liam Lawson up to Red Bull and then put Yuki Tsunoda in Liam's car, Racing Bulls, going into this weekend. There were a couple dozen updates across the grid. Red Bull didn't bring any though. And that was kind of evident, this weekend. The sprint, it was a sprint weekend. George won the sprint, cleanly from Leclerc and Norris, with Antonelli in 4th, Piastri 5th, Verstappen down in 6th, Hamilton 7th. And McLaren looked kind of beaten at that point. Leclerc passed him. Norris, who was running on mediums, without any, tussle, and, it really looked like McLaren was cooking their tires, their back tires anyway, on Saturday, and just that long run race pace wasn't there. So George, it didn't bode well for McLaren coming out of that sprint, although overnight, they changed their car, and we'll get into that when we review McLaren. And then they had a brief shower just before the start of the race, very damp, greasy surface that was drying out, mostly dry, except for a couple of spots, which Max found. Almost the whole grid starting on Pirellis. And Pirelli later
they all started on Pirellis?
Degradation on... Yeah, they all started on Pirelli. Slicks.
Okay.
Sorry. I meant to say slicks. Thanks for catching me there.
Oh, yeah.
All the cars started on tires. But Pirelli did admit that the degradation on Sunday was quite a bit more than what they were saying on Saturday. So anyway, all right, let's let's jump into the review, shall we? Let's talk about McLaren. We'll start off with the sharp end of the grid. You had Lando Norris P1, Oscar Piastri P6, back-to-back wins for Lando. The most interesting engineering story, I think, out of the weekend, watching how they performed on Saturday. They actually made the car slower where it was fastest in order to win. Mark Hughes had an interesting piece I read over at Motorsport suggesting that the car is a short wheelbase and short in gearing, which suits Budapest and Zandvoort, but pushes aero balance rearward, giving it really nice high-speed stability and sort of a vague front end at low speed. So in the sprint, the fast corner speed overworked the rear tires and made the slow corners worse. So they detuned it, according to him. And it's a mature approach to this. Obviously, a team that knows the car well, probably an uncomfortable choice to make, but actually they crunched the numbers clearly, and were able to bring Lando home in P1. He had pole by a tenth. Then lost the lead at the restart, spent the first stint on mediums, thinking the win was pretty much gone at that point, but they called him in. He said the medium stint was mediocre, I think. He said, but he said the car really came alive on the hards when they called him in. And this is really kind of the whole race in one sentence. It's how that car responded on those hards, and it kind of forced Mercedes into that early second stop by, closing up, and there was they had a 7-lap tire offset, and in his words, they pressed Mercedes into that strategy, and the pass that he put was pretty much pre-planned. It was 3 clicks of brake bias forward, outside line at turn 1. Hamilton is the buffer, and he said had he not made that, there's no way he would have won. Said he's still not completely satisfied. The car needs a lot more in order to fight for the title, but and given the tracks that are coming up, he's not confident they'll have that kind of pace. But other than that, though, Paul, I think it was a real combination of not only Lando driving and executing, but really that team reversing their fortunes on Saturday, finding where they could find some pace, and they did the math right. And so it's a combination of great driving and strategy.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of aero balance compromise is normal, I feel. I think what isn't normal is you don't get 2 races in a weekend, normally, no matter where you are, to find where maybe that aero compromise was maybe guessed wrong. I mean, normally, you don't do the long runs. The heat of competition and racing, there's no replacement for it. You can do practice laps, you can do qualifying laps, but race pace, dirty air, running with other people, you learn a lot. And so maybe this is where the good side of a sprint race is that the team can really analyze how their race pace really develops during a stint. So I think that's just what they found out. Sometimes you always take away something to give something, and you always make compromises for tire life. We do it in our team across the board, and obviously the Formula One has to do it maybe more crucial there because of the sensitivity of the tire. So yeah, and it was a great job, and I'm not convinced that pass was the only pass that won him the race. I think he did have the pace in hand, and I think he would have achieved it elsewhere. But it makes a good story, right? If I hadn't have done this, I would have, the world would have stopped, So I think it's a good story. It's something to live with. It was a great pass. I mean, there was no DRS enabled. He was even because of who Kimi was following, right? Kimi had the same tools that Lance did at that moment, same amount of extra power, same amount of aero, all that kind of stuff. So it was a legitimate outside pass. Nice to know, they're still playing with the brake bias just to make those one moves, because obviously on the outside everything does change in your braking dynamic. So that I thought that was maybe the most interesting out of all of it, that's what he did, because it's not easy to make those brake bias adjustments on the fly into each corner, and certainly not dependent on the situation. But that's why he's a Formula One world champion.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, not so great for his teammate. Oscar down in P6, started fourth on the grid, a tenth and a half off Norris, finished half a minute behind him. I think that gap is kind of the story of McLaren's season so far for Oscar. Passed Russell at the start, ran third, then lost a place for a slow pits. I will say all those top teams, there's a lot of slow pit stops across the board, not just McLaren. But he struggled to switch on the hard tires, conversely to what Lando did. Couldn't get the hards to really switch on, picked off by both Ferraris. Stella said that P6 was no reflection of his competitiveness and really kind of pointed to that slow stop and the tire not being able to really make the most out of the hard compound. To me, it might suggest that Norris is currently able to either feel or exploit maybe this very narrow window in this car that maybe Oscar's finding it a little more difficult to find. I'm not sure, but not a great weekend for dear Oscar.
No, we're not talking about Oscar very much, are we? It's a shame because we, not so long ago, we were picking him head and shoulders above Norris, but now Norris is world champion. Maybe that's given him the influence on the team to influence how the car goes. But then, Norris is getting the job done also day in, day out. So it's hard to know where Piastri stands at this point, but we just haven't had those, glimmers of brilliance from him in quite a while. And this was just another example of that, I feel. Just kind of like, nice race, Oscar. It wasn't your fault, And I get pit stops getting flubbed does not help the situation, but he's not rising above those situations either and making dynamic things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just not seeing that like we did last year, that's for sure. Mercedes, interesting race for them. You had Kimi Antonelli in P2, George Russell P3, a double podium that Toto, I think, correctly described as damage limitation, but Mercedes had the fastest car in Sector 1 and nowhere else, really. Admits that it didn't really have the quickest package in 2 consecutive weekends now. The more important number is that Mercedes has one significant upgrade left, they said, that's coming in Baku before it starts pressing against their cost cap. Their championship lead is 83 points, while the development runway is one more package for them. And, it's a big question whether they can make that work, and puts a lot of pressure on that one big upgrade package that's coming. Kimi ended up in P2. 2 excellent standing starts, gaining a place at each. Led the majority of the race, said the car felt good on mediums, but he lost significant pace when he got onto the hards. Just said, he radio Bono and said, I just have no grip with these hards, and they really couldn't fix that issue, during the race and race conditions. The lap 40 stop, at first I thought maybe it was putting the shoe on the other foot. To have that tire offset delta against Lando, and that we would see him march back up. But in hindsight now, I think that the lap 40 stop was more defensive than offensive, to be honest. He was never really able to attack Lando. Andrew Sullivan, kind of confirmed they had to box ahead of Norris because the McLaren was clearly faster. To your point, Paul, the pace was there. The virtual safety car stop onto softs was I think smart. It didn't cost him anything. Also proved the point that the new softs are not necessarily quicker than 9-lap older hard tires of McLaren, but I think it was the right move. He still extends the lead in both championships, but he left relatively disappointed. I think he felt like a win was on the cards, and unfortunately it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, the win wasn't the cards. It was a close run thing. It wasn't a walk away for Norris by any means. And yeah, each car is suitable for different types of compounds, etc. It's obviously Mercedes don't have that advantage that they have had, and that as the development war comes, everything keeps going up and down and up and down. But the good thing for them and for Kimi is that, good thing for Kimi is that he's still able to, sorry. That's funny. My dad just walks in. He's like, what's going on? It's funny. So anyway, he'll start playing guitar in a minute, I think. Yeah, so the good thing for Kimi is damage limitation is P2, right? So, he's got the buffer there. Then there's no need to start crying. There's no need to panic. If you can just keep doing that, maybe there'll be a different winner every weekend, but he's still going to be in the top 3, and he's still going to keep that buffer in the championship. Still looking great. And if they've got another upgrade coming, then that should all be even more exciting, right?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any reason to push the panic button for him, but to Toto's point, it was kind of damage limitation. It's a little different on George's side. Finishing P3, lost a chunk of power at the start, dropped behind Piastri. Admitted he didn't really have any pace on the mediums anyway. He regained third only because of McLaren's slow stop, not necessarily on merit, on track. He questioned the order to swap on the radio, asking whether Antonelli was fighting for the win, then complied without a fight and defended. I thought he did a great job defending against Hamilton. Hamilton was clearly faster. And I think George is on, 22 lap older tires. So in order to hold on like that, hammer and tongs, did an amazing job. His explanation afterwards is kind of the important part to me. Mercedes has a standing rule that drivers on different strategies never fight and always invert. That may be the case. On one part of me thinks that his radio question is legit. Look, if we're going to swap places, you're going to let Hamilton have full attack of me. And we could be sacrificing a dual podium here. Is Kimi fighting for the win? If he's not fighting for the win, are we sure we really want to swap? Because we could lose a double podium. And I think it was a legit concern from George, if I'm honest. Now he's level with Hamilton, 183 points, 59 back. He won the sprint, but really nowhere near the title conversation yet. And I don't know. I saw him taking some heat on social media and stuff, or people, commenting about his radio message, but I thought it was a fair point, Paul.
No, it is a fair point. But I do like that idea of the different strategies, and they acquiesce to the other driver if they're doing that. Maybe Ferrari need to speak about that amongst themselves a little bit. But yeah, I mean, and it wasn't an animated. It was a good question. It was a solid question. What are we doing here? Does he have a hope of getting to the lead, or are we just swapping positions just for the hell of it? I think the proper decision probably would have been to have Kimi wait back there, and then try and swap positions at the end or something like that. But you know how this team is working and where their bias is towards. So I think they just go all in on Kimi every week, right?
Yeah, Kimi was on fresh tires. I feel like the call should have been to keep him back there and run tail gunner for George to get George onto the podium. And like you said, swap at the line. But that would have been safer. Once Kimi was allowed past, I thought George was toast. So a testament to his driving defensively. I thought he was toast. And I'm sure Lewis thought he was toast too, but a great job by George.
Well, he probably would have been toast if it wasn't that for that darn Charles Leclerc coming from behind also. So right. I think the one shot.
Right.
I think George did a phenomenal job to hold Lewis off for that long, but I feel like Lewis probably could have got him on the last lap if mirrors weren't full of Charles. Which is a whole nother question, which I'm sure we're going to move on to next.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, you had that brief virtual safety car too for debris, which I think kind of helped George too at the very end.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, let's talk about Ferrari. I think in my mind at first I was thinking this may be the best car on Sunday relative to its grid position and maybe the worst pit wall on Sunday. Fred Vasseur was honest that the execution wasn't perfect, said that the compound deltas were so small that the strategy was very hard to read. Fair enough. That's kind of what they get paid the big bucks, though. I do think that's true, but it doesn't explain a 3-lap window in which the team managed to leave both of its drivers very unhappy about the same sequence. I think that's where it started to get, a little odd. With Lewis finishing in P4, he had contact with Verstappen at the first start, then ran longer for a stint than the other front runners and used it well. Caught Leclerc on much fresher tires, asked to be let through while chasing Russell for the podium. Ferrari said nothing to Leclerc, apparently. The radio at the time from Lewis, he said, "We're just losing time." And then he said, "A great way of wasting time, guys. Good job." So he was not happy. And even afterward, he was unusually direct. He said that they were not unlucky that they lost time earlier and it cost P3, and he explicitly sort of contrasted that watching the two Mercedes do it what he would consider the right way.
Right.
And they executed fine. And so he said he'll take it offline with the team, but not happy. He's level with Russell on 183 points now, third in the championship. I don't know that I can blame him on that front. I will say that when we review Charles, I'll mention it. Charles said he never got the call. He was told to box, then he was told to stay out, and then he was told to box, and he did. And we'll get into his thoughts on it. But certainly you can understand why Lewis was not happy.
No, absolutely. And it's just a very poor run of strategy. Even if I would understand it a bit more if they asked Charles and Charles is questioning it for a couple of laps, because, we know that the inter-team rivalry there, it's got to be a lot of to and fro there. Charles isn't enjoying, being under threat, and neither does Lewis on any given weekend. So I think it's, very competitive between the two drivers, and they don't want to give each other inch, let alone the other people on the track. So and Lewis was right. He was right. That's exactly what they should have done. They didn't do it, and I don't know why they wouldn't have mentioned that to Charles if, in fact, that is what happened. Because, Charles can just say he didn't hear it also.
Right. Yeah, Charles ended up in P5, lost a place to Piastri at the second start, then passed him back on track. Says he was never given any instructions about Hamilton. He was told to box, then told to stay out, then told to box again. His own complaint about the situation, those 3 laps, runs the opposite direction. He wanted to extend 5 to 10 laps after Russell stopped to build that tire delta for a late attack, and was called in 2 laps later instead. So he said he was surprised. So yeah, it was difficult. So the same 3 laps produced 2 frustrated drivers, one who wanted the team order and one who wanted to be left alone effectively. He used all 3 compounds, fastest of anyone in the closing stages on softs. And I think Ferrari's Sunday pace is generally good. It's their Saturday pace that's just really keeping them behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, it's that the debrief room was probably pretty chilly, I would imagine, and some stairs going on. Explain yourself. Still interesting with the back and forth between the Ferrari drivers, both of them, and their engineers, and the questioning of, it seems to be whoever's engineering Charles is asking Charles what the strategy is, and Lewis is interjecting with his engineer saying, "Why the hell are you doing that strategy?" Maybe they should switch engineers, because and Lewis can just tell his engineer happily. His engineer apparently will be happy to just accept all the information.
That's a great point. It is a great point. Yeah. Lewis is always asking, what the heck are we doing? Why are we doing this? And Charles is sitting there saying, okay. And the team says, Charles, what should we do? Yeah, it's so true. Red Bull. You got Liam Lawson P7, Max at DNF. Laurent Mecchi said there's really nowhere to hide and that the team appears to have gone backwards relative to Austria, Spa, Hungary. Verstappen put it a little more plainly. He said Red Bull's the fourth fastest team. Other teams brought a lot of upgrades. Red Bull didn't, and there's no real magic available here. Max raced pretty quick, seventh on the grid, worst home qualifying. He said he was under the weather all weekend, not feeling great. He had contact with Hamilton and Lawson at the beginning, sort of a messy opening lap, then got on to a damp line at the final corner. And lost it. Hit the wall heavy. It was a heavy hit. He walked away from it. He's okay. It brought out the red flag. At that point, his explanation was that the spot looked dry, he accelerated, and it caught him out. Sixth in the championship. Now he's closer to eighth than he is third. He ended the Zandvoort era in the wall at the corner named after him at a race only existent because of him. So
yes,
ironic.
That's a toughie. Yeah, that is very ironic. And obviously very untypical of him to make that kind of mistake.
Yeah.
Or is it a mistake? Or is it just,
it is.
How do you got to, sometimes these things just happen. I know that on the commentary they said he hit the white line, but maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know, but it definitely, it was uncharacteristic.
I don't think he
for sure.
did. I thought, yeah, I was watching Sky's broadcast, and I thought Karun and Nico Rosberg did a pretty good job of analyzing it during the red flag. And I think both of them were right. You could see the white line, and then just off the white line, it was damp, and the dry line was, as Nico said, about maybe 50 centimeters beyond that. And you could watch his front tires get on that damp little patch between the white curbing and the dry line. And there was a damp line right there. And you could see his tires running over that, where they looked at other cars and they were just that 50, 60 centimeters out on that dry going through there. So, and I think the people who struggled, I think Gabby and others were down closer to that rumble strip.
Right. Gotcha.
So, Liam Lawson, P7, one practice session in the car, qualified within a tenth of Max. Laurent Mecchi's called that out specifically, said he did a great job. Described it as a lonely race, said he extracted everything he could. He even absorbed a 10-second penalty for a yellow flag infringement and still finished seventh, which was good. Was directly behind Verstappen in the crash, called that section of the track incredibly slippery on slicks. I think in both camps, and we'll get to Racing Bulls in a minute, I think in both camps, it just shows that Red Bull's junior pipeline just produced two credible weekends from both he and Yuki from a driver's perspective that they had previously discarded both. I think the pipeline, their driver pipeline's working just fine. It's just the car isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think the car's coming and going again, and we've been over that before with developing a car and an engine program for the first time is a big project, and to try and diversify and do all that. So I give them deference for maybe not being completely on the ball or on competitiveness every weekend. And I think Lawson did a great job. I mean, I'm sure he went in there with trepidation. It's like, well, last time I got, nearly destroyed my career. Do I really want to? Why don't we let Arvind have a go? But I'm sure he's full of confidence of himself. He's certainly built up after some very, very good performances on track, and maybe he was more ready this time. And maybe the pressure is off a little bit as you're still the stand-in. You're not the guy that everyone's believing should do something, and maybe it loosened him up a little bit and gave him that opportunity. But you can't be disappointed with the performance through the whole weekend, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think he did a great job. Another good job, Audi, Nico Hulkenberg, P8, Gabby Bortoletto, P13. Best of the rest. Fourth consecutive points finish, a genuine near miss that could have been horrible for both cars. Briatore singled out Audi as exceptionally fast this weekend, and that's they're fighting them in Racing Bulls. 16 points in climbing, which from a team in year one of a works program is a reasonable trajectory by anyone's measure. I think it's a trajectory that maybe Cadillac was pointing to as a reason making their boss switch, because at least they're moving forward, right? Nico P8 somehow avoided spinning Bortoletto right in front of him in a cloud of white smoke at the final corner. That was just pure reaction with a little sprinkling of luck there. We started 12th, past Gasly and Tsunoda on track to finish 8th. McNish called his race superb. And it was a great race. 4 points, Audi's most convincing Sunday so far this season, Paul.
Yeah, obviously, finishing 8th, and only Verstappen was the only car that dropped out of the top 4 teams, right? So, staying with it, staying competitive, building on that. Obviously, Nico has had a deficit in the points to his teammate for a while, but he's finally getting it to the finish line, which is also extremely important, and buoying the team and just kind of keeping them going. Both those guys have done a great job for that team, and the team are doing a great job in getting the car to be best of the rest in their first year in competition.
Yeah, for sure. Gabby, not as great a weekend. Down in P13, 9th on the grid. Poor getaway, dropped all the way down to 14th. Not sure what happened. We got wheel spin or anti-stall, but so he said he's basically saw the smoke coming off Verstappen's crash, made a small steering correction, and that put him in a spin. It turned 14 on the banking. He spun, restarted 17th, recovered to 13th, said the pace was good. He was happy with the car throughout Saturday. The result is disappointing, because in my mind, I thought leading into that, he looked quick all weekend. Looked right there with Nico, both Audis. I felt like we're points contenders. So it was unfortunate that he dropped back. So not as good a weekend that I believe he probably could have had. Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, he's close enough to Nico that you got to think whatever Nico can do, it's possible for him at this point. He's got enough experience, and he's definitely shown the ability to be fast and get the car to the finish as well. So, Yeah, agreed. Well, the story of the weekend's got to be Aston Martin. Fernando Alonso in P9, Lance another DNF, but maybe the most underrated result of the weekend. Aston had 3 points all season. 2 of them came on Sunday. Newey confirmed that, the strategy explicitly said fresh softs at the red flag, manage them for almost half the race, convert it into an effective one stop. That's exactly what they did. Gave Alonso P9. He started 18th, finished 9th, ran 37 laps on a set of hard tires, held Gasly off through the closing laps in a car that really doesn't have any business defending against an upgraded Alpine, if I'm honest. Said he wasn't expecting points and credited the team for maximizing everything, the strategy. He also said there's still a lot of drivability issues we gotta tackle here, but I don't know. I also kind of feel like maybe the real story could be maybe the upgraded Honda power unit. If it's starting to work, that actually is a very positive sign for 2027. Their 2027 case gets a lot more serious, at least, if that Honda upgrade engine is working. Yeah, I mean, give Alonso half a chance of getting anything, and he'll go for it, right? And he's obviously got, you got to go counter strategy to do that with a car that maybe isn't performing. But for them, if he's still got a lot of issues going on, then that's even more encouraging, right? Because problems will get solved. How quickly can you solve them? I don't know, but at least if they know what the problems are and how they're attacking them, and it definitely seems like a lot of progress has been made. But if there's a lot of problems still to solve, then I think it's probably more encouraging than not, since they have been able to get rid of a lot of the gremlins that were putting them just in horrendous pace on at the first few races.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Lance, not much to talk about. I'll cover him quickly. As a DNF, picked up damage early on, lost pace, pitted for hards, tried to recover, and then retired. Newey suspected that a handling issue really traces back to that damage, another non-finish, and really a season full of non-finishes for Lance. Alpine, Paul, this is a good story for Alpine. You got Pierre Gasly P10, Colapinto down in P14. Now, Colapinto did not get the upgrade package. Pierre Gasly did. He scored in the sprint and the race, both. Briatore said the package clearly made an impact, and that Alpine needs to learn how to use it now. The Racing Bulls 66 points to Alpine 63. There's only 3 points between them. This is now, I think, a great constructors fight worth watching. It's just a darn shame that we don't get to watch it because the TV coverage isn't covering it. And it's a shame because I think there were some really good battles back there and some great racing between these two teams. Pierre P10, excellent start from 11th up to 9th. Had to avoid Verstappen's car like Nico did, bouncing back across the track. Held 8th after the restart, then spent basically the afternoon in traffic. Said the Racing Bulls were actively racing to compromise his afternoon, and he will remember that. Team play.
Yeah, we saw it. We did at least see a bit of that on the TV, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did see that. He was a half second behind Alonso for much of the closing stint and really couldn't find a way through. I think it's a positive, Paul, because Pierre finished in the points ahead of both Racing Bulls, and and Colapinto was not able. So, if you were going to take a positive, you would say that the upgrades are working.
Yeah, a point's a point, but you would hope you get more from an upgrade than that.
Agreed.
Was very surprised he wasn't able to get by Alonso. I thought Alonso was destined for P10.
Me too.
So, great drive by Alonso, but still, I think a little underachieving there, not being able to get by the Aston Martin for Alpine, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. And maybe that's, Briatore's comment is, it's made an impact, but we need to figure out how to use it. So, Colapinto overtook 4 cars at the start, was into the points, then took a drive-through penalty for overtaking under yellows. Then he had a second yellow flag infringement later on, called the first penalty harsh. Briatore called it severe and harsh, but he acknowledged that the rule exists for safety. He got it, but finished exactly where he started, and he'll get the upgrade package, I think, in Monza. So it'll be interesting to see how they do there. But not as great a race for Franco.
Yeah, well, maybe he got those 4 places while he was passing under yellow. I'm not sure when. So I don't know. Was it a great move? I don't know, but yeah. Didn't see much of Franco's race, to be honest. Yeah. No,
I didn't either. He wasn't. He didn't get a lot of TV time. Let's see. Racing Bulls, Yuki Tsunoda P11, Arvid Lindblad P12. No points. 2 drivers, both I felt had reason to expect points, and they weren't there. Alan Permain called it tough. He was generous about Tsunoda. In his compliments. I think the team still 5th in the constructors, 3 points ahead of Alpine, but Alpine upgrades may have momentum for him. Yuki standing in for Liam Lawson, finishing P12. First competitive outing in 2026 in an all-new car. He's done a lot of sim work, of course. Finished 11th on what is presumed to be a 1-race stand-in. Beat the full-time teammate Arvid. Slid off track at one point. May have cost him P10, but I think ultimately the 3-stop strategy proved slower than Alonso's 2-stop, and that's what kept him out of the points. Also, Paul, reportedly in talks with IndyCar Drive at your friend over at Meyershank. for 2027. And
that would be interesting.
he kind of looked like a driver who, he looked like a driver who's trying to make a case for that seat. And to be fair, I think he largely made it this weekend. Did a good job considering he's been on the sidelines for a year.
Yeah, no, it is a really good job to come in, to the pinnacle of motorsport without having any racing miles under your belt the whole year. And, we're getting fairly deep into the year at this point, right? So I think expectations probably weren't that high, but I think he probably exceeded them a little bit. Obviously nothing spectacular, but he did a fine job. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. And I would think, I could be wrong on this, I would think that most of his sim work was probably doing the Red Bulls, driving the Red Bull cars, not the racing bulls. So this would have been, a markedly different car for him. Yeah. Arvid down in P12, a drive-through penalty for overtaking under yellows during the Verstappen crash. Said he was really just focused on holding his line through debris, not trying to pass anybody. He did say it was possibly his best race of the year for pace and sort of commitment to the strategy and race once the penalty was served. Once he got that behind him, he held up Gasly to let Tsunoda escape. And as you mentioned, we kind of saw that, they were running the team game there. So yeah, a little surprise, a little bit ragged. The penalty didn't help. I was expecting him to finish ahead of Yuki. So, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Speaking of it is what it is, Cadillac Paul, Sergio Perez, P15, Valtteri Bottas, another DNF. You got Martin Bukowski's first race weekend as team principal. Out with that long-suffering Graham Loudon. He described the weekend as an eventful debut, complex strategy calls and changeable conditions. But at least the reliability picture is switched to hydraulics instead of brakes. That's good.
There you go.
I think
he's changing this. He's turning his boat around as we speak. Yeah.
Right. He's there 1 week and we're already finding something else to have an issue with. Yeah. So he's found a different area to locate our problem. Sergio P15 pit lane start after an overnight changes, made the overcut work to clear Bottas. It said the virtual safety car timing took away an opportunity they had to and move forward, really. Finished ahead of Williams, and that's the bar Cadillac is currently clearing. So that's good. Valtteri
now they don't have Aston Martin
had a hydraulic issue.
Kick around anymore.
That's true. Yeah, they won't have Aston Martin to kick around. They're going to be back there with Williams kicking the dirt.
Oh, no.
Out in left field.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have that.
Oh, no, it all went wrong.
Now, let's talk about Williams. Carlos Sainz P16, Alex Albon, through no fault of his own, a DNF. I would think this would be a weekend that Williams would like to delete. You got 2 cars, 2 different strategies, 1 collision, 1 retirement, and 1 time penalty. That kind of sums up their entire weekend. Carlos ran a long first stint, got into the top 10 before it all unraveled, locked up on very worn hards over the bump into turn 1, hit his own teammate, 10-second penalty for causing a collision. He immediately apologized, knew it was his fault, also noted that the team ran test items all weekend, which put them on the back foot. And despite all that, he did sign a new contract.
Right. Yeah, I'm getting a little worried for James Vowles, quite honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had some sparks, but it just seems to be a steady decline in pace, except when the Cadillacs are your only competition. It's fallen pretty far from what they did last year. So I don't know what's going wrong. But obviously maybe they even just kind of cast off this race weekend just to do some development work, which isn't a bad strategy, honestly. I mean, if you're not really getting there, sometimes you have to throw away a weekend just to focus because you got no proper test days to do it. Maybe it'll benefit them in the end, you know?
Yeah, let's hope it does. Alex said the car felt good in clean air. It wasn't really that far off mid-pace, but he believes that Williams pitted too early on the first stop, reacting to potential undercut rather than running their own race, and said, look, the contact's a racing deal, and that put him out of the race. I watched an interview with James with the Sky team in pre-race, and it was interesting because he's sort of changing his commentary now. And he said, well, maybe I put way too much pressure on this 1 year. And I think you have to look year on year and start looking at the things that we're doing. Yeah, it was interesting how he kind of turned slightly that narrative where he was saying, throwing away 24, 25, it's all about 2026. And we've talked about it in past podcasts. And I was too a little worried about James, because everything he, by his own words, was putting all the focus on 26, and now he's doing worse than he was last year. And so he's sort of changing that into a longer-term, year-on-year thing now. And admitted maybe he put too much focus on 26.
Yeah, and it's just about, about the investors and who's willing to be patient, long-term. Remember, we heard that forever from Renault, and it's like, it's always next year. This is a building year. It's like, eventually you got to stop building and start moving in,
Right. That's why they canned Graham Loudon.
Yep.
So they're done with their building phase. Now we're in racing performance stage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was more the bricklayer.
Right. He was the bricklayer. Let's see. Down and finally Haas. Oh my gosh. This is troubling. First double DNF of the season. Reliability failures for both. Komatsu confirmed the power unit failures on both cars. That's not good. And if you're Ferrari, you'd be a little worried about that. They're 7th on 21 points, still ahead of Audi, but Audi's scoring and Haas is not. Esteban had a DNF, retired late, with what the team said was a power unit issue. Ollie Behrman he had a good start, good first lap, and then the engine just shut off completely on the formation lap, and he didn't get to restart. And just the whole engine, everything shut off. Called it a horrible weekend, pinned his hopes on updates arriving coming up imminently, I should say. So not a good weekend for Haas. And, I don't know, Grace and I have talked about this too on off weekends, but don't know quite exactly what Gene's doing here now. Formula One's at the pinnacle of its valuation. Do you hang in there and starve the team? Grace and I talked about the cost cap not really being a ceiling, but now it's being a floor for these teams who can't achieve it or reach it. I think Haas is one of them. I don't think Gene has an appetite just to infuse a ton of cash and invest ahead of revenue. Yeah, I don't know what to say about the team. I hope they turn that around. I hope their upgrades help.
I guess we got to know what his goal is. Is his goal to build the team up for some kind of profit, or is it simply used as some parts were saying as a business liaison tool? And come see my Formula One team, and if it doesn't cost him any money, then that's all he cares about is being at the race and doing his business there. It's hard to know, but doing it the way they do it, they're not going to win Grand Prix and they're not going to win championships. So it looks like they're just kind of keeping themselves in it just to be in it,
Yeah. And that was kind of Williams' problem for years. As long as the ink was black, then we're just basically employing people. And we have a nice family, and we love racing, and we enjoy going racing, but we don't have any aspirations for anything other than possibly midfield. And the balance sheet seems to be balancing out, and we're fine. And this is our job, right?
Yeah.
And then, then they hit a bump in the road, and Claire couldn't sustain that. But so anyway, I don't know. yeah, you bring up a good point. It really boils down to what Gene wants. Okay, let's give out some awards. We do that during the first award we like to give out is Move of the Race.
Get down.
Oh yeah. My move of the race, Paul, was Lando Norris on Kimi around the outside turn 1. I think it was a piece engineered, and I think he had deliberately taken that tire offset, the team did, to give him a shot to get there. I think McLaren transformed that, on that hard compound. The Mercedes wasn't. He closed the gap, waited for two of them to catch Hamilton's old tired Ferrari, moved his brake bias 3 clicks forward, went in at Tarzan and made the pass. And I thought it was a really clean, champion-esque kind of move. And I thought it worked out well.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. I mean, there wasn't that many moves we saw that worked out really great for everybody. So why not? It's a pass for the lead, and it was a difficult one.
Yeah, it was, and it's just the whole week is just interesting to see. It's back-to-back wins now. And it's interesting to see on these type of tracks. That McLaren kind of springboard up and then Lando execute. So if you're a McLaren fan. A really good weekend. Is a great pass. Next award, well, it's one of our favorite awards, if I'm honest. Yeah, it's the Donkey Award. What'd you have, Paul, for Donkey Award?
I'm going to give it to the Williams drivers on track when you're fighting it for 15th place or whatever, and you end up banging into each other and making more. Take it away from the cost cap money, for absolutely no reason whatsoever. I'd say that's pretty embarrassing, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, that was not good. That wasn't good. I'll give it to Ferrari pit wall, and specifically the 3 laps around in the second stint. I think that was a real cluster. Yeah. And they'd had it, they'd been calling some good strategy of late. So this is quite a departure from that. And, I think that could have been managed better, and maybe nipped a podium for one of them.
Just
most likely
a little bit
Lewis,
better.
But, anyway, just a little bit. All right. Final award we like to give out. Oh yeah. Drive the race.
Get in there, Lewis.
Yep.
Do you like my pace? Do you like it?
Yes, we do like the pace. All right. I had to give it to Fernando. He extracted the most. He extracted the most from the least in the second slowest car on the grid. Started 18th, finished 9th, ran 37 laps on one set of hard tires, roughly half the race distance, without falling off the cliff, on a surface that Pirelli confirmed was degrading far more aggressively on Sunday than it was Saturday and what they had modeled. So I think, it's easy to give it to Lando too. Certainly Lando's deserving, but I thought Fernando did an amazing job.
Yeah, I'll give it to Lando just to equal things out, but I agree with both your comments on both those drivers, sure. But, Lando's, I said he's impressing me. He's impressing me more than I thought he would as a world champion, but I think he's doing a good job. Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was wondering, and this isn't fair at all to say, and I'm not trying to be judgmental. There was a part of me that was wondering, because we watched Lando since he got in, as the young, young kid and impish and sort of thing. And I was wondering, as he matured and then won that championship, if he had that, if he made that step, do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That step from the young driver to a champion who is steely-eyed, solid, bit between his teeth, could handle the pressure, could handle the criticism, all of those things. And I got to be honest with you, he's doing it. He's doing it.
He is. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, we got a mailbag question.
You've got mail.
Dear friend of mine, Cohen, had a question for you, and I want to ask you. So
Okay.
he was pointing out that Red Bull has been complaining about car balance for the past few years. You know, even their 24 and 25 car, it was always the balance, and they couldn't get the balance. They're always talking about the car balance. And if you could argue that the 25 car was just an evolution of the 24 car. So if there were some balance challenges around that overall design, that maybe some of those were still evident in that evolution to the 25 car. But with the 26 car, sort of an all new thing, all new power unit, all new geometry and everything. Why do you think, Paul, they're still having that same issue around car balance with their chassis?
Well, if I knew, they'd probably call me up and I'd earn a lot of money, right? It's obviously ideology. I mean, they may be complaining about it, but I think they still think it's probably the right direction to go to achieve the best results they can get. Every car has its foibles, right? Every car isn't perfect. And they've always a negative to a positive. Everything's a compromise. And maybe something that their ideology always leaves them living on the edge of being able to keep a car in balance all the time. But ultimately, you know, they're sticking to their philosophy of that. That's all I can imagine. It's not like they're going out to make an imbalanced car by any means, but maybe they hold some other things more dear to make the pace. And I think to some degree, Max Verstappen is a big part of that, because he can make something that maybe doesn't work perfectly work very well, or at least achieve results with his hands on the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, if you asked all the teams, I think they'd all say we struggle with the balance of the car. And I think the balance is a default sort of description of what the cars, where they're on the edge of performance and balance between front, back, right, left, and power and power output and drivability, right? And I think all of that probably is intertwined. But I think you bring a good point. There probably also is an aerodynamic chassis design philosophy from each designer at each team that they feel mathematically is the more compelling design to achieve the outright pace that they're seeking, knowing that its performance is going to produce something that they also will have to manage and mitigate from a balance issue through various means. One of those means could be Max Verstappen, right?
Right.
Other means could be the aero, wing config, front wing, you know, how much wing they run, tow, a lot of power and how it deploys power and wear diff, a lot of elements that would go into trying to tame that imbalance, if you will. But I think you bring up a good point that they're going to design a chassis that they feel is as fast as it could possibly be, and then try to mitigate the imbalance issues or the impurities of that design, if that makes sense.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. All right. Well, Paul, I'm sorry about VIR.
Yeah, I'm pretty.
But I'm glad you ran down the pit lane and got loud with them. I think the pit lane needs to see that side of Paul.
Yeah.
Good.
It was like a couple of crew members followed me down in case there was a fight. So that's they haven't seen me like that too often. So
you went full Schumacher at Spa 98, didn't you?
Yeah, pretty much.
You were down there ripping your ear sets off in the crew members are following you down there, holding you back, like you're going to go into the garage and kick the living crap out of David Coulthard. Good for you.
It was close to that. Yeah,
I like
it
it.
really was.
Yeah.
Yep. Got to protect your team, you know?
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Especially in brake checking. That's weak.
Mhm.
That's crazy. Well, all right. Well, that does it for this podcast. It's what we think about the final and last Dutch Grand Prix, but we'll be back next week with Grace in tow, and then Monza. Paul and I'll be back to review. Paul, what's your next race coming up? You've got Indy next. Is that right?
Indy and IMSA, but in a couple of weeks I'm going to Coda for the World Endurance Championship race. So I've got
you're going
one
to,
in.
okay, Coda for WEC. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the IMSA, let me get this right. So for those of you that are going to the races and want to try to say hi to Paul, so you've got Indy for IMSA, and then after that, it's Petite. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
2 more to go.
And then you've got, in a couple of weeks, you got WEC at Coda. So you guys go down and see the Valkyries down there.
That's right.
So anyway, if you're going to be at Indy, at Coda, or at Petite, make sure you go say hello to Paul.
Say hi to me.
And, yeah. And Paul, and I'm pretty sure Paul will say hi back. He's that kind of guy. Unless you brake check him, and then he's going to get loud with you. I'm just going to tell you that
I'll
right now.
go for your throat.
So.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, that does it. Hey, let us know what you think about the Dutch Grand Prix. You can do that at theparkforme.com. Also, if you like the podcast, give us a good rating on your favorite podcast player. Huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. We couldn't and wouldn't do this podcast if it were not for you, our Patreon supporters. Very grateful for your support as always. And then we will be back next week to do it all over again. I'll find Grace, dust her off, and get her opinions on the IndyCar race in her town in Washington, D.C. Maybe we can talk about that and get Grace's cutting insight into the IndyCar race. But until that time, we'll be back next week to do it all over again. This is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
It's not what I feel I've got to prove.